The urgency of divine timing is not something to be taken lightly, because the flow of spiritual energy that surrounds each one of us does not happen randomly, nor does it operate on our limited human schedules. There are windows in the universe, divine alignments where everything seems to intensify, where the air feels heavier, where your spirit becomes restless, where your dreams feel sharper, and where your heart begins to sense something bigger than yourself moving into position. August 23rd is one of those moments, and for the chosen ones this date has been stamped into the unseen realm long before you were even born. It is a spiritual checkpoint, a reminder that heaven operates by divine order, and when certain doors open in the spiritual world, those who are awake must step through them. You may have noticed unusual energy leading up to this day, moments of tension, disruptions in your routine, heightened intuition, or even people from your past suddenly reappearing. These are not coincidences, they are signals from the divine realm urging you to pay attention, because ignoring them would mean missing the very thing you were prepared for. The chosen ones live with a deep sensitivity to timing. While the world goes about its cycles of busyness and distraction, you have always been pulled in a different direction, sensing that the moments that truly matter are not marked by human calendars but by spiritual significance. That is why on days like this, when divine timing converges, you may feel pressure in your spirit, almost as if a clock is ticking louder than usual. It is the voice of destiny reminding you that this is not the time to hesitate, not the time to retreat into fear or doubt, but the time to align yourself completely with the flow of the higher purpose placed inside you. When divine timing calls, it requires not only awareness but obedience, because an opportunity missed in the spirit may not come around again in the same way. That is why the urgency today is not just about hearing words but about receiving them, allowing them to penetrate deeper than logic and take root in your soul. Some may wonder why certain dates matter, but in the spiritual world, dates are portals. The 23rd is a number tied to transition, change, and movement. It signifies the moment where something ends and another begins, where what has been hidden starts to reveal itself. For the chosen ones, today is not just another mark on the calendar but a signpost that heaven's agenda is moving forward whether you are ready or not. You might have felt delayed in your journey, perhaps wondering why things have taken so long, why prayers felt unanswered, or why struggles seemed endless. But what you did not see was how divine timing was protecting you from moving too soon, from stepping into doors that looked good but would have destroyed you, from forming bonds with people who would not have survived the next chapter of your journey. Everything that appeared as a delay was actually a divine pause, carefully orchestrated so that this very moment could arrive without error. That is why the urgency now is so strong. It is not a gentle nudge, it is a call to attention, because when divine timing arrives it does not wait for indecision. Chosen ones, you carry inside of you a sense of mission, even if you do not always understand its full scope. Sometimes it comes as a restless stirring, sometimes as an unexplainable heaviness, sometimes as a voice within that tells you not to settle for less. This sense of calling intensifies in moments of divine alignment, and that is why today feels different. It is not just another day for survival, it is a day for awakening, for realization, for moving forward in ways you might have feared before. The urgency is that if you do not rise when heaven opens a door, you risk being trapped in cycles that were meant to end. The universe is patient but not stagnant, it moves in rhythm, and when the rhythm beats loud enough you must dance to it or else be dragged along unwillingly. The choice has always been yours, but the consequences of delay become sharper in times like this. That is why the risk of ignoring this call is greater than the risk of stepping forward. You may have noticed unusual challenges right before this date, unexpected resistance, people testing your patience, old wounds resurfacing. This is often the sign that breakthrough is near. because spiritual opposition always increases when divine timing is about to deliver something new. The enemy knows what heaven has planned for you, and so distractions rise up to blur your vision, to make you doubt, to make you too tired to listen. But the chosen ones are marked by resilience. You were not given this calling to collapse under pressure. You were given it so you could withstand storms that others could not endure. And the urgency of today is reminding you that the storms were never meant to destroy you, only to refine you, to strip away what could not survive in the higher levels of your calling. That is why divine timing always feels like fiery, because it purges and it tests. But it also makes you sharper, stronger, and more aligned with your true self. There is also a reason why this final message is emphasized as no matter the risk. The risk is that once you hear truth, you cannot unhear it. Once revelation enters your spirit, you cannot pretend ignorance anymore. The urgency of divine timing demands responsibility, because when you are aware of heaven's movement, your choices become heavier. To ignore it is to step away from destiny, but to embrace it is to enter into uncharted waters where faith is your only anchor. The risk is real, but so is the reward, and chosen ones know that obedience always outweighs fear. You may be afraid of losing people, of stepping away from comfort zones, of confronting the unknown. But divine timing assures you that what is meant for you will never abandon you, and what leaves was never meant to stay. The urgency is to release control and trust the orchestration of heaven, because when heaven moves, resistance is futile. August 23rd stands as a marker, not just in the natural world but in your personal journey. Think back on the seasons you have survived, the lessons you have carried, the moments you thought you would never overcome. All of those have been leading here, shaping you for this time, pressing you into readiness even when you did not feel ready. Divine timing rarely announces itself with clarity until it arrives, and then suddenly everything makes sense. The delays, the losses, the battles. The urgency is that now that you see the alignment, you must act. You cannot go back to the way things were. You cannot unknow what has been revealed. The heavens have placed emphasis on this day, and the chosen ones who are sensitive will recognize that this is the moment to lean in, to listen deeply, and to prepare for the unfolding of the next stage of their purpose. The hidden risks of ignoring your spiritual calling are far greater than most people realize, because when you carry a divine assignment inside of you, your very life is tied to it. The chosen ones are not like everyone else. They are marked from the beginning with a specific purpose, a mission designed to bring light into dark places, to awaken those still asleep, and to shift energy in ways that ripple beyond their own personal existence. To ignore that calling is not just to delay destiny but to create cracks in your soul that never quite heal. You may try to distract yourself with worldly pursuits, bury your gifts under layers of fear or doubt, or convince yourself that you are not ready, but the calling does not disappear. It lingers in your spirit like a fire that refuses to be extinguished, and the longer you resist it, the heavier it becomes. That heaviness can manifest as confusion, frustration, cycles of repeating mistakes, relationships that never satisfy, or a deep emptiness no success can fill. This is the risk of silence, the cost of ignoring what heaven has placed within you. When chosen ones attempt to blend in with the world, they discover quickly that the world does not accept them fully, no matter how hard they try. That rejection is not accidental, it is divine protection pushing you away from false paths. The risk of ignoring your calling is that you will always feel out of place, like a stranger in rooms where you should belong, like an outsider in circles where you've given everything to fit in. This spiritual displacement is heaven's way of reminding you that your true assignment cannot be found in conformity. But if you choose to stay silent, if you decide to suppress that truth within you, the frustration grows until it consumes your peace. Many chosen ones find themselves battling anxiety, depression, or a sense of restlessness that no external solution can cure, because the risk of neglecting your calling is living a life that never aligns with your soul. Another risk lies in the consequences of missed opportunities. Divine timing presents doors that will not stay open forever, and ignoring your calling often means walking past them because you were too afraid or too distracted to step through. The universe will continue to offer chances, but they rarely come in the same form again. The relationships you were supposed to build, the places you were meant to go, the words you were destined to speak, all of these are affected by your willingness to embrace your assignment. Every delay carries a cost, and while grace covers the chosen ones, the weight of wasted years cannot be ignored. This is why some feel regret later in life, sensing that they knew deep down what they should have done but allowed fear, doubt, or comfort to silence them. The risk is not just personal loss but also the loss of impact, because chosen ones are meant to awaken others, and when you ignore your calling, those who needed your light may continue to stumble in the dark. Ignoring your calling also opens the door for unnecessary battles. Life already carries challenges, but the chosen ones who refuse to embrace their path find themselves fighting wars they were never meant to fight. They attract toxic environments, remain entangled with people who drain them, and wander through cycles of confusion because they have not yet stepped into alignment with their true mission. When you are not where you are meant to be, everything feels harder, heavier, more complicated. The path of purpose is not easy, but it is blessed. The path of avoidance, however, is filled with endless detours and unnecessary suffering. This is why some chosen ones feel like life is against them until they finally surrender to the call, at which point things may not become perfect, but the sense of direction returns and the weight begins to lift. There is also the spiritual risk of dulling your discernment. The more you ignore the voice of your soul, the quieter it becomes, not because it is silenced forever but because you have trained yourself to ignore it. Every time you dismiss that inner guidance, you build resistance against it, and eventually it becomes harder to recognize the difference between intuition and distraction. This is dangerous for chosen ones, because their survival depends on being able to hear and respond to spiritual direction. To ignore your calling is to weaken your own compass, leaving you vulnerable to manipulation, confusion, and traps set by those who would rather see you fail. The chosen ones cannot afford to move without discernment, but discernment grows sharp only through obedience. Every act of alignment strengthens your spirit, while every act of resistance weakens it. The cost of silence is not only personal but generational. Chosen ones are often carriers of generational healing, called to break cycles of pain, trauma, or dysfunction that have plagued their bloodline for decades or centuries. To ignore your calling is to allow those chains to continue, to pass them down to those who come after you instead of breaking them once and for all. Heaven entrusted you with that assignment because you have the resilience, the vision, and the spiritual capacity to do what others before you could not. Ignoring it leaves the burden for someone else, but it also leaves scars on your lineage that could have been healed through your obedience. This is why the chosen ones often feel the weight of responsibility heavier than others, because their actions do not affect only themselves but countless others connected to their journey. Another hidden risk of staying silent is that the world will attempt to define you. When you refuse to define yourself by your calling, you leave space for others to impose identities on you that were never meant to stick. You may be labeled according to your past mistakes, your current struggles, or your visible imitations. You may even begin to accept those labels as truth, living beneath your potential because you believed lies spoken over you. The risk is that without embracing your calling, you will live someone else's version of your life instead of your own. The chosen ones were never meant to be defined by society, but by the divine, and silence only strengthens the chains of false identity. There is also the risk of spiritual warfare intensifying when you ignore your calling. The enemy does not fight what is harmless. The fact that you experience resistance is proof of your importance, but chosen ones who refuse to rise often suffer greater attacks because they remain in limbo, or too awake to fully blend into the world, yet too afraid to fully embrace their assignment. This middle ground is the most dangerous place, because it leaves you vulnerable and exposed. Once you step fully into your calling, you gain authority, protection, and clarity. But while you remain silent, you are tossed between forces pulling you in different directions. The risk of ignoring your mission is that you prolong this torment, living in constant tension instead of stepping into the strength that was promised to you. The hidden risks go even deeper, because ignoring your calling can harden your heart. The more you resist, the more bitterness you may carry, especially when you see others moving forward while you remain stuck. Jealousy, resentment, or even anger can creep in, not because you truly envy others but because you know deep down you were meant for more. That internal conflict can destroy relationships, rob you of peace, and leave you feeling disconnected from everything around you. This is the silent suffering of chosen ones who refuse to answer their call, and it is why the urgency to act is so strong. Every chosen one knows the feeling of being haunted by purpose. No matter how far you run, no matter how much you hide, the calling follows you. It appears in your dreams, in random conversations, in the quiet moments when you are alone with your thoughts. You may silence it temporarily, but it always returns stronger. This persistence is both a blessing and a burden, because it ensures you cannot escape your destiny, but it also means that the longer you resist, the more painful it becomes. The risks of ignoring your calling are not only spiritual but physical, emotional, and mental. The body carries the weight of spiritual disobedience, the mind struggles under the pressure of unfulfilled potential, and the heart aches for something it knows it was designed to experience. For the chosen ones, silence is never neutral, it is costly. To stay quiet is to surrender ground to forces that do not want you to rise. To ignore your purpose is to live a shadow of the life you were meant to live. And while heaven is merciful, time is not endless, and every moment of hesitation carries unseen risks that multiply the longer you remain still. The final awakening is not a moment that arrives gently, it comes like a wave that can no longer be held back, a breaking point in the soul where resistance ends and surrender takes over. For the chosen ones, this awakening is both terrifying and liberating, because it strips away every illusion, every mask, every excuse that once allowed you to stay hidden. It does not come because you sought comfort, it comes because destiny demanded it, because heaven refused to let you continue living beneath your potential. This is the point where you are forced to see yourself clearly, to recognize the greatness that has always been within you, and to accept that you were never designed to walk the same path as everyone else. The awakening is the moment you realize that everything you endured, every pain, every betrayal, every season of loneliness was never wasted. It was preparation. The chosen ones are not ordinary souls. They are vessels of transformation, and the awakening is when that truth becomes undeniable, even if the world around you resists it. To step into this final awakening means to embrace your calling fully, without apology and without hesitation. It means no longer shrinking yourself to fit into spaces that were never meant for you, no longer silencing your voice to make others comfortable, no longer running from the responsibility placed upon your spirit. The fear of rejection, the fear of failure, the fear of standing alone loses its power, because awakening brings with it a knowing that outweighs all fear. This is not intellectual knowledge, it is soul knowledge, a deep recognition that you were created for something greater than survival. You begin to see the patterns of your life differently, understanding that the things that once broke you were actually shaping you into someone who could not be destroyed. The awakening removes the blindfold, showing you that what you thought were curses were actually blessings in disguise. that the closed doors were protection, that the betrayals were redirection, that the isolation was refinement. And once you see with awakened eyes, you cannot go back to blindness. The final awakening also demands courage, because stepping fully into your chosen purpose is not easy. It means letting go of people who cannot follow you, shedding attachments to old versions of yourself, and walking into uncharted territory guided only by faith. You may feel the pull of fear trying to anchor you, but the awakening will not let you stay bound. You will hear the inner voice louder than ever before, urging you to move, to act, to trust. The chosen ones discover in this season that courage is not the absence of fear but the decision to act in spite of it. Awakening does not erase fear, it makes fear irrelevant, because the fire of purpose burns hotter than the flames of doubt. This is why chosen ones who have truly awakened appear unshakable to others. They carry a light in their eyes, a strength in their spirit, a clarity in their words that cannot be explained by human logic. The final awakening also exposes opposition, because when you rise into your true self, the world around you responds. Some will celebrate your growth, drawn to the energy of your transformation. Others will resist, uncomfortable with the reflection of what they have not yet embraced in themselves. This is where the chosen ones must learn discernment, understanding that not everyone can walk with you into the next level. The awakening reveals who was truly for you and who was only comfortable with your silence. It is painful to lose people, but awakening teaches you that loss is often divine pruning, making space for connections aligned with your new season. The chosen ones are tested in this way, because attachment to the past is one of the greatest obstacles to embracing the future. The awakening strips this away, sometimes brutally, but always with purpose. There is also a spiritual fire that comes with awakening. You begin to feel more connected to the unseen, more sensitive to energies around you, more attuned to the whispers of the divine. Dreams may intensify, synchronicities may increase, and your intuition sharpens like never before. This is not random, it is the result of alignment. When you awaken fully, your spirit is no longer dulled by fear or denial, and so the divine can flow through you with greater clarity. You may feel called to speak words you never thought you would speak, to take actions you once thought impossible, to step into roles you never imagined for yourself. This fire is not arrogance, it is conviction, and it cannot be dimmed because it is fueled by something greater than you. The chosen ones who resist their awakening often feel tormented, but those who embrace it feel ignited, unstoppable, driven by a force that is not their own. The final awakening also brings clarity about identity. For so long, chosen ones wrestle with who they are, often questioning their worth, doubting their abilities, and comparing themselves to others. But awakening shatters false identities, revealing the truth of who you are at the core. You realize you were never meant to fit into the mold of others' expectations, that you were never designed to live a life of mediocrity, that you were never called to follow paths already walked by the masses. Instead, you were set apart, given unique gifts, unique burdens, and unique strengths that were designed for a mission no one else can fulfill. The awakening frees you from the trap of comparison because you finally see that your value lies not in being like others but in being fully yourself. The chosen ones who embrace this identity move with a new confidence, no longer needing validation from the world, because they carry validation from within. Yet the awakening is not only about personal empowerment, it is about responsibility. When you awaken fully, you recognize that your life is not your own, that you were chosen not for comfort but for impact. The final awakening places a weight on your shoulders, a holy weight, reminding you that you carry light for others, that your voice, your presence, your journey has the power to shift lives. This is why the chosen ones cannot remain hidden. Once awakened, their very existence becomes a beacon. People may be drawn to you without knowing why, seeking comfort in your presence, guidance in your words, or strength in your energy. This is the responsibility of awakening, and though it may feel heavy, it is also sacred. You were entrusted with this because heaven knew you could bear it. The final awakening also confronts the lies of fear. Fear tells you that stepping into purpose will cost too much, that you will be rejected, that you will fail. But awakening shows you that the greater risk is staying asleep, living a life that was never meant for you. Fear whispers that you are not enough, but awakening reveals that you have always been more than enough because you were chosen before you even knew yourself. Fear tries to keep you small, but awakening refuses to let you shrink any longer. This confrontation with fear is not easy, but once you cross the threshold, you begin to see that everything you once feared was an illusion, smoke designed to keep you from the truth. The awakening clears that smoke, leaving only clarity behind. The final awakening also brings peace, not the peace of a life without struggle but the peace of alignment. When you know you are walking in your true purpose, even storms feel different. The winds may blow, but you no longer feel tossed about aimlessly. You may face battles, but you no longer question your worth. You may encounter setbacks, but you no longer lose hope, because you understand the bigger picture. This peace cannot be purchased, cannot be faked, cannot be taken away by anyone, because it comes from within, from the deep knowing that you are where you are meant to be. The chosen ones carry this peace like armor, and it protects them from the chaos of the world. The awakening also reconnects you to the divine in a way that is intimate and unshakable. You no longer see the divine as distant, unreachable, or abstract. You feel the presence in your daily life, in your decisions, in your thoughts. The chosen ones who awaken fully often describe it as walking in partnership with the divine, no longer begging for signs but flowing with them naturally. You begin to see the hand of the divine in everything, in the timing of events, in the people you meet, in the opportunities that open. This connection fuels you, sustains you, and reassures you even when everything else seems uncertain. The final awakening is the bridge between who you are and who you are destined to become. It demands sacrifice but promises fulfillment. It strips away illusions but replaces them with truth. It requires courage but rewards you with freedom. For the chosen ones, there is no greater moment than this, the moment where you step fully into alignment with your higher purpose, where you stop running, stop hiding, and stop doubting. It is the moment where destiny and decision finally meet, and everything begins to shift. Chosen ones, this message has not come to you by accident. Everything you have heard today was meant for your spirit in this exact season, on this exact day, because the universe and the divine knew you were ready to receive it. You have walked through fire, endured storms, and carried weights that most people would never understand, yet you are still here. That alone is proof of your strength, proof of your purpose, proof that you were never forgotten. This is not the end of your journey, this is the turning point, the moment where silence must end, where hesitation must die, and where the fullness of who you are is called to rise. You were chosen because you carry something that cannot be replaced, something that cannot be duplicated, something this world desperately needs. No matter the risk, you must step into it, because destiny is waiting and the time is now. Thank you for giving me your time, your energy, and your heart today. I honor your spirit, I honor your journey, and I honor the battles you have fought in silence. I pray that as you leave this message, you carry with you the clarity, the courage, and the conviction to keep moving forward no matter what. Remember, you are not alone, you are not abandoned, and you are not powerless. You are chosen. Until we meet again, stay strong, stay awake, and never forget who you are.